Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a new school year. We are so excited to get this year started, pumping, ready, and jumping. As we get into this instructional planning for this school year, now I know you've all been waiting for this template and you're ready to see the information of it, but we are going to go through what that should look like on Tuesdays and Thursdays as we go through collaborative planning. So we're going to start with our Tuesday document, and this is our graduate release model. So if you are on graduate release, or you are not an EOC course, this is the template for you. Even my science teachers and math teachers who do have another instructional framework, pretty much everybody is using this same document besides the EOC courses. So let's specify that one more time. If you are a EOC course, you would use a slightly different template than what you see presented right now, and we'll go over that a little later. But if you are not an EOC course, this is the template that you're using, and it does say graduate release at the top. That just lets us know that that is for all our non-EOC courses. So that's the wording on that. But I do know that we have three different instructional frameworks happening this year in the building. Science has their own. Math is going off of the 5 E's. And then we have our graduate release, which is another working document that our framework that we'll be using this year. And please expect your instructional magnets to be coming to you very soon so that you can have that on the board. If you do have old magnets, I ask that you take those down because we are using our new and improved magnets, and we want to see that in every classroom as it shall align to the framework in which you have for your content area. So let's get through this document. As you are going into instructional planning, thinking about the week and how to set your weeks up to know how to be the best prepared and the best intentional. So I want you to take the mindset on that you might have thought that you have went through everything, and I've been teaching this for years, but I don't need to look at the standard. Everybody has to look at the standards. We need to go back through those standards to make sure that our information and what we're putting out to students is aligned with the standards and what they're being asked to. And based on our CSIP goals that are at the top of this document, it's going to remind you of where you fit in this equation. Although you might not be 10th grade lit or Algebra 1, because those are two of our tested contents, we all still play a part in making sure our CSIP goals are achieved by the end of this school year. And we will always let you know within those time periods of, hey, how we're doing and where we need to go. But our big rock this year is going to be using data-driven decision-making to accelerate achievement. And all of us can use data to help us accelerate achievement. So be sure that you are implementing the best intentionality behind what you're putting out to students and making sure it's in line with what we're asking students to be able to do for that standard. So let's get into this. Now, some changes from last year that you will already see is that this here says weekly standards versus our unit standards. So instead of breaking it down by unit, you're actually going to break down those standards that are happening through the week, okay? So you're first going to copy. The first thing that you will do is probably copy and paste your standard here into this box. And if you have more than one standard, you have some extra boxes to do that. If you need to insert a box, you can always insert a row. I would suggest to go below just so that you can add on to that table, okay? Because it is a table within a table. So just add on to it. Okay, so you're going to put the standards there. That way you kind of have a flow of what they are and what standards you're focusing on. Then in that second space, you're going to look at what do students need to know to reach the achievement level of this standard. What is the document that you can actually look at to help you with this? Look at your ALDs, your achievement level descriptors. It will break it down and tell you where students need to be in order to meet proficient, distinguished, also beginning and developing. So if you are reaching just the beginning and developing area, you are not looking at the alignment to the standards. So go back and check those standards again to see what do they need to know to be proficient or distinguished. And that's the level that we want to teach students to get to, okay? So determine what they need to understand. What is some prior knowledge that they might need to have in order to understand standard? What is some knowledge that they're going to need during learning this standard that we need to be sure that we go over? Look at what academic vocabulary will be assessed for that standard, and then what needs need to be covered to extend students' knowledge of the concept. All of that goes there. It should be, you might have some bulleted information just to kind of help you along, but you should have enough information within those boxes that should meet those questions and really tell us exactly what your students need to know to be able to reach that standard. Okay. Now, when we look at the next box, it's looking at what do they need to do, actionable, to reach the achievement level of the standard at proficient or distinguished, because that's where we want students to be. Okay, we're raising everyone to be at the proficient and distinguished level. So, what evidence will the student use to guide them to exemplary? Include the success criteria. So, when we're talking about evidence, what is it that they're asking to submit that's going to show that? Our success criteria can be a rubric. It can be an exemplar that is going to show us what it looks like for students to actually meet the standard or to be proficient or distinguished. So if you have something that can show us how they're going to be distinguished based on that standard, that is what you're putting in that box. Okay. So that last piece is very beneficial because it's showing us what students need to do to reach the achievement level that we're asking them to meet. And so being able to supply your success criteria in that area will help with that. Now, this all should be good for you to be able to add into your instructional planning on Thursday, but we got to look at things in advance and ahead of time. So we're starting with this, previewing this information on Tuesdays. Now, Tuesday is a data talk day. So data is seen in different ways, but the first thing that we always have to see is what does it look like for our standard in itself? How does that align? Okay. And that information is going to be previewed for whatever it is that you're doing for the next week. So go ahead and start on that. Then you're going to preview your upcoming assessment with the backwards model and design here. Looking at your actual assessments is going to be something that you need to sit down and do as a team. Even if you're a singleton, it's always good to look at your assessments ahead of time so you can see where students need to go and what information or things that might be on that assessment that you can help prepare students for. Okay, it should not be identical information than what's on the assessment, but actually looking at the assessment for itself. So looking at the depth of knowledge questions found within the assessment. If your assessment is focusing on a DOK 3 or 4, that means by the end of that session, by the end of that week, students should be at that level. If it's a week, however long your pacing is, when they get to the assessment, they should be able to comprehend on that DOK level that is being asked on there. So the whole time during this unit, we're only teaching the DOK 1, and we're only looking at recall information. We cannot expect students to get to an assessment that is asking them DOK 3 or 4 and asking them to actually conceptualize something, and we're not giving them that information during our instructional planning. So look at your assessment ahead of time to know what DOK level students need to actually be at. Are there multiple representations of knowledge on the assessment? Are there graphs? Are there writing prompts? Are there application scenarios? If there are, we need to make sure we're preparing students to get to that level of rigor by time of the assessment. So that's something to also put into place. Go ahead and figure out which distractors or wrong answer choices are likely to confuse students and why. Okay, those could be some of your misconceptions, right, that you're seeing that are on the assessment that like this is a distractor, but it is also a question that makes relevant sense, but it's not the right answer. So we know when we look at multiple choice, sometimes we have 4 different answer choices that students can choose from. However, what we tend to notice is that it's 2 that look like they can be right. One is the right answer and one is there to distract you. So figure out what those answer choices are and figure out how you can actually implement that into your lesson planning to make sure that students have a clear understanding of what the correct answer is and understanding why it might distract them. So going under misconceptions, when you're looking at your common misconceptions, and this can be a real piece for our content lead because I do know we have some new teachers in the building. So as you're going through your standards, always think about what can be a misconception for your students. So what is something that you might think that they'll be able to get that they actually don't have a connection to, or that they might see differently than what you have assumed. So we're going to try to preview some of those ahead of time and put those in. Here's a quick statement that you can use as you're looking at misconceptions. If a student struggles to master this, then they will have misconceptions about blank. So that's just a quick prompt that can help you with filling out your misconceptions that you find within your standards. So then we're going to get into the piece of data analysis. Now, the first week of school, we're not gonna have any data to really look at. But as we get into the week, you shall be able to collect some type of data that will help you fill out this area. So our data analysis, when we're looking at whatever assessment is, whether that is formative assessment or a unit assessment, but whatever it is that we're looking at for the week, to assume where our students are and where we need to go, this is where we're doing that piece at. And so we're starting off with the question, did the assessment items align in depth and rigor to the instructional activities? So that would be good to look at after you have given an assessment. Did what I taught during those couple of days, whatever I taught during that time, and my instructional activities, did that actually align with what the assessment was asking? And what pieces do we see that might have failed when we gave the assessment? What multiple representations of knowledge did we see? Were there multiple representations of knowledge on the assessment? And so just asking that question again about what those were, which you should have previewed ahead of time. In the chart below, you will then record your data of your concern. So here in this box here, you will actually input any stuff you need to insert. You can always go here to the image or whatever you might have, because we know that all of our teachers are not using Renaissance, so you might not be able to put in a screenshot from there. But for a performance task or whatever it might be, you should be able to link your data there to show what areas you have of concern or re-engagement, or what data you have to show for what you're discussing within this data analysis. So you would input the data below for you to be able to put in what you're going to discuss within that time. Then you're going to look at areas of concern. What were some of the most missed questions? So those questions where you have about 70% of students that did not meet the mastery of that question. So what were those questions? So put in 4. You should have about 4 in there that are areas of concern, and they don't have to be high areas. Your first one should probably be the highest area of concern to the least concern. And then have some type of rationale as to why students did not, you assume that students did not do well in that. It could have been within an assignment that they did that they probably didn't grasp. Maybe it was timing. Whatever it is that would answer as to why the question was not met with mastery. Then you're going to go into your plan of re-engagement, implementing their instructional focus, because Monday through Thursday, we are looking at our re-engagement and our acceleration. So if there's areas where students did not do well on, to spiral that information back in to make sure students are not losing it, but they are looking back at those standards in those areas. We're going to focus on the re-engagement piece in this area, what learning gaps and what needs to be readdressed. So what standards are those, or what concepts, learning targets can we put in that we know that students had a learning gap on? Where and with whom are the most significant gaps occurring? So actually putting in student information to tell you where, what happened, what was the most significant area. And then what will we address in those learning gaps to ensure mastery? What is it that students will be doing during that time that will help us get them to mastery? So we can't just say, oh, they're going to be working on IXL. We have to actually go in and talk about the learning gaps and what we're going to do. And that is going to take explicit instruction versus supplemental resources. So what explicit instruction can you give, whether that be in small groups or individual one-on-ones? What is it that you can do to help students get to mastery? That can also include tutoring sessions and what you'll be doing within those tutoring sessions to help you. So hopefully this went through your first document of tutoring. I'm sorry, not tutoring, but your Tuesday, as you get into that information and you're filling this out and completing it. And this form will be submitted by whoever is within your collaborative planning. If you're a singleton, you'll be submitting it by yourself. But if you are working in a group, so let's say, for instance, if you are collaborative planning and you are chemistry or physical science or economics, y'all are, that's just a couple, that's not everybody, but just an idea that you're not EOC, but you're collaborating. Your data analysis should go into your data folder, which is in the lesson plan folder. So you want to look at that to make sure that that's there. So I want to go over some of the differences with our EOC document that is different from our graduate release document that we just went over. So the first piece is everything is pretty much the same. Again, we're looking at weekly standards as we're going through and adding to. Then you have those same prompting questions for upcoming assessment. And then you go into misconceptions. Now, the document here is different, which is our student tracker Google Sheet, which you will be provided. And I will also do a video on that, of how to set that up and create that. But each teacher will have an area where they can submit their student tracker Google Sheet, and we will go through it that way. But that is new to this document. And then your PLC screenshot, which will be uploaded by admin, because admin is able to see all areas. So they will upload that screenshot. But you do need to still take a look at the Renaissance Matrix report that will have your individual information on it, so you can see what happened within your area. And then we're going to collaborate on those areas of concerns, because your response frequency can change by teacher, but we'll come up with a group of 4 questions in particular that need to be focused on within that PLC that looks like it needs to be re-engaged for all areas. And then we will go into the re-engagement plan. So the main differences from the ELC versus the other template is going to be the student data tracker, and then looking at the actual PLC screenshot per admin. So those are the main differences that you'll see there. So you might be wondering, how do we actually upload this information? Well, when you go to your Doghouse folders, which everyone won't be able to see everything, but for this template in particular, if you are general data planning and non-EOC, you are going to go to this Gen data planning document or folder, and you're going to click on it. You will then see the template there as well, so that you can always make a copy of it. But you're going to go to your actual content folder, and there will be some other folders added, but just for the purposes of this video, I just added a couple for right now. So let's do math, and you will see your collaborative planning team. And then let's say if I am collaborating and I am geometry, I'm going to go here and I'm going to submit it there. Even if you're a singleton, you should still have a folder with the actual content specific information where you'll upload your data planning information. If you are ELC class, then you will go to ELC data planning, and then you will click on your area and you will upload your template there. You also have your template so that you can always make a copy and upload it into the correct folder. So that is how you will upload your data planning, and those are to be uploaded on prior to Tuesday so that you can have those in your data talks. All right, and that's that. So the next video will go over lesson planning templates and our instructional frameworks and how to upload those.